my name is Michael Ford. I am running for Oshkosh City Council on April 7th. I was originally scheduled to appear on Ion Oshkosh along with several of the other candidates. Unfortunately, my appearance was canceled, but they have given me this opportunity to go ahead and answer these questions that were asked during that interview anyways. So I went ahead and secured Oshkosh's best interviewer. Here he is, my son, Charlie Ford. Say hi to everybody, Charlie.
Hello?
Now, don't go easy on me.
Who are you and why are you running?
My name is Michael Ford. I am a Millers Bay resident here in Oshkosh. Been here for about 7 years. I live with my son Charlie, my son John, who's 8 years old, and my wife of 14 years, Allie. I'm running for City Council because I believe in Oshkosh. I love Oshkosh. I believe in the residents of Oshkosh. I think we have a once-in-a-generational moment right now to take all of the good things that we are doing in town, things like the Sawdust District, things like Oshkosh Avenue, things like Lakeshore Park and Jackson Street. We have an opportunity to get these things right, to make sure that they benefit everybody and really set our city up for future prosperity, decades long.
Okay, what do you see as the role of a council member?
Good question. Philosophically, I think a council member serves as a bridge between the values of Oshkosh residents and our government. So the actual implementation of services. So as a council member, we don't actually oversee anybody directly aside from the city manager. So city staff, that's all under the direction of the city manager. However, we do set the tone. One of the things we do to set the tone is hire and evaluate the city manager. It's one of the most important things we do. I'd say another one of the more important things we do is the strategic planning process. And that ensures that we're not just doing a bunch of things here and there because they are trendy or they sound good, but we have a long-term plan for executing the values of the citizens of Oshkosh. And finally, the third thing we do, which I think is most important, is the budget. Now, my day job is as a professor of public administration at UW Oshkosh, and I teach public budgeting, and I'm passionate about public budgeting. People tell me budgeting is boring. It's not boring. It's the most exciting thing that we do in government. It is that contract between Oshkosh residents and their government. Our spending decisions reflect our values. It is a sacred document. I think that is the most important thing we do as a council member.
Do you have any community experience?
I do. Do I go to meetings a lot?
Yes, quite often.
Yes, sorry about that. But yes, I do have a whole bunch of community experience. I was appointed to the Plan Commission by former Mayor Cummings. I was appointed to the Long Range Finance Committee by current Mayor Palmieri. I serve as the president of the Millers Bay Neighborhood Association, which
Yes.
I believe is the first and oldest neighborhood association here in Oshkosh. I serve on the Oshkosh Food Co-op site selection team and store design team. I'll say I was much better at the site selection than I am at store design. I requested that we have bathrooms and checkouts and food, and I think that we're going to get those. I also serve on the United Way Financial Health Committee, which gives me a whole bunch of experience with the nonprofit sector in town. And last but not least, on the board of Clarity Care.
Nice. What are the critical issues facing Oshkosh?
Good question. So I think we have a lot of issues. Number one is really opportunity, and that sounds like a little bit of a cop-out. But think of those things I just mentioned before, Charlie. So think of like Oshkosh Avenue and Lakeshore Park and the Sawdust District, the area around the arena. So we have all of this opportunity, but we only get one crack at getting these things right. So I really think the critical issue is getting those things right. And how do you get those things right? It means that everything we do in those developments is intertwined with equity, so it doesn't just benefit a few citizens of Oshkosh, but it benefits all Oshkosh residents, that we have just a commitment to a culture of accountability where we have performance measures so we know exactly what we're doing, why we're doing it, and whether or not it's working. And I think if we get those systems in place, we can get all of those development projects right, and it's just going to be awesome for the city. The second thing that I think is a critical issue that doesn't get as much attention, but it should, it's our socioeconomic and racial achievement gaps. It's a shocking number, but if you look at last year's test scores for 8th grade students in Oshkosh, there was not a single Black 8th grade student in Oshkosh that tested proficient on the English language arts exam.
Oof.
That's indefensible. That is something that we should all take seriously, and not just because it's tragic enough that we have a population that is struggling, but it's an indicator. It's an indicator that people are being left behind in Oshkosh, that we are not providing excellent services to everybody. It's also an indicator of things to come. I like looking at school district data because that's the future of Oshkosh. Those students are going to grow up. They're going to live here. They're the students people we need to stay here and thrive here. I've said this to some folks, and they come back at me and say, "Well, isn't that really a school district thing? You should run for school board." And I say, no, that is an Oshkosh thing. The school district alone is not going to solve that issue. The city of Oshkosh alone is not going to solve that issue. The nonprofit and private sectors alone are not going to solve that issue. That is an everybody issue. And I think that is hypercritical. We need to take that on. The third issue that I think is important and is a little more of a hidden issue that I was not, not a hidden issue, but I was not aware of it until I recently became involved in a project to analyze data, and that's a public health concern, and it's fall prevention. We have an aging population here in Oshkosh, and there is a huge information gap about what causes elderly falls, how to report elderly falls, and what do we do to make sure people feel safe in their homes. And what I think we found is that there is a population in Oshkosh that is really afraid of losing their home and really afraid of what might come next. And it's a public health issue that we need to take on moving forward.
Yeah.
You know what, Charlie? I'll say even more, because those are specific issues, right? But we have the classic nuts and bolts issues that every municipality, really in the country, but in Wisconsin, faces. And those are things like tax climate. Can people afford to live here? Fees, affordable housing. One thing that I've done a lot of doors, so knocking on doors, trying to get my name out there. If you haven't seen me yet, you'll see me soon. But one thing that people bring up over and over again is the condition of the roads, our basic infrastructure. So these are all nuts and bolts issues that, we have things that are very important and that maybe ebb and flow, but we can never lose track of those issues either.
Yeah, downtown, there was that one road, remember? Where was that? It was right by the memorial at Lake Winnebago. Like down the street, it was super gravelly and torn up.
Oh, Merritt Avenue,
Yes.
Yes, and that's crucial because that's the road you take to go ice fishing.
Uh-huh.
You need that road.
Yes.
All right.
How do you address these issues?
Well, I have to have solutions too. I knew you would be a tough interviewer, Charlie. Well, it begins with a governing philosophy. I think every single candidate in this race should have a platform, should be able to articulate that platform, and should really start by being able to articulate how they're going to make decisions. I believe in transparency. I believe in equity. I believe in inclusion. Every decision I make is going to flow from three basic principles. I believe that every Oshkosh resident has a stake in our success. It's owners, renters, north side, south side, west side, everybody. I think every Oshkosh resident has a right to be heard. We can go ahead and we can do surveys. We can try to figure out what people are thinking. But if we are not proactive and getting out there and actually getting a cross section of the community, we're not getting good information. Everybody has a voice. Everybody needs to have that voice heard. Third philosophy is that every Oshkosh resident has a right to know what their government is doing, why they're doing it, and whether they're doing it well. It's their government. Now, that's pretty broad and philosophical. Let's get specific. You ever been to Colorado Springs, Colorado?
Have I?
You have not? I don't think so. I know we went to Denver.
Yeah, we did go to
and drove through the mountains and stuff. That was cool. But if you go to Colorado Springs, you look at their website, they have a government performance dashboard. And what that does is it puts right online on their webpage performance information, fiscal information, so that everybody in that city has a good idea of what their government is doing and why they're doing it. Right now, and I see this on Long Range Finance and I see this on the Plan Commission, we have all these different plans out there, strategic plans, sustainability plans, and all of these things that are great. People work hard on them. We have goals. We're putting money towards implementing things that are in these plans, but they're all over the place, meaning there's not alignment. People aren't able to understand what everybody else is doing. The left hand and the right hand are not always in communication with one another. So if we do a performance dashboard, we get all of that information in one place. That facilitates communication, it makes for better decision making, and it creates trust in government because it's our money, it's our freedom we give up to live in a governed society, to live in Oshkosh. Everybody needs to understand or needs to have access to that same information that the city manager has, that city council has, that basically anybody has access to. So I want to do that for our performance information, and I also want to do that for our budgetary information. So there's no argument about where the money's going, where the money's not going. We should just be able to look that up. It should be easy. The second thing I want to do, and this really gets at the issue of the achievement gap and the issue of these complex solutions that don't have, or complex problems that don't have simple solutions. And that is an intersectoral task force. What does that look like? Well, right now we have a group of leaders from the city, the school district, from the nonprofit sector, from the university, that they all get together and they talk about issues. And that's important and that matters. I'm glad that happens. But I want to formalize that, because the fact is we need to have common goals, common performance metrics, and somebody who is in charge and really steering that ship. And I think the city can play that role if we actually want to get these things done. So in other words, instead of having a bunch of good things happening in silos, we can have everybody on the same page working towards a common goal. Third thing I want to do, Charlie, and this is the most boring, but I can't resist because, like I said, I am a professor of public administration. I study governing dynamics, and I love learning about governing dynamics and seeing how city council members interact with each other. I want to create a local government accountability statement. What this means is that it's a simple, one-sentence thing, one-sentence phrase that tells us how we as council members define accountability, how residents define accountability, how the city manager defines accountability. That puts us all on the same page. Residents know what their expectations should be for government. We know what we should be judged on. And if we do it, great, re-elect us. If we don't do it, find somebody that will.
Okay. Should the council deal with these social issues at all?
Deal with social issues. Yeah, they should. I think there is this misnomer that social issues and fiscal issues are somehow dichotomous, that they don't interact with one another. But if the role of a council member is to, represent the values of Oshkosh residents, well, we have to put their social concerns into every single thing we do. So here's an example. That's a little too vague for you. So in my work on Long Range Finance Committee, we created a debt policy. We needed a debt policy. We need our funds here in Oshkosh to go towards services, not paying off interest on a loan. So we set hard numbers in that debt policy to make sure that we're not taking out too much debt. But we also included social equity in there. I'll ask you a question, Charlie. What if your mom and I, she's over there, you can't see her, but what if your mom and I decided we're going to take a loan out so that your brother John can go to college, but we're not going to do it for you? What would you say?
To be honest, I'd be a little ticked off.
Yeah. Wouldn't be fair, right?
Yeah, but life's not always fair.
Life is not always fair. But you know what? We can make it fairer. And that's an example of a social issue. So included in that debt policy is, like I said, is this concept of social equity, that when we take out debt as a city, so the entire city is guaranteeing this debt, we have to demonstrate that there's a positive impact for everybody, not just one side of town, not just one demographic, but everybody. And we can do that with all of our policies.
Okay, well, I'm speaking for all the people here. What will you do about my water bill?
What? Well, first off, pay your water bill. It's very important to pay your water bill. You got to pay your water bill. But no, I know that, so this issue came up, and it came up in the Eye on Oshkosh interviews with the other candidates, because there was a few people that got just enormous water bills. Now, that was the result of an error. So first off, we shouldn't make policy off of an extreme outlying case that was corrected and that was wrong. Right? So if I give you a $10,000 water bill, I shouldn't say, oh my gosh, everyone's getting $10,000 water bills. But that said, it's a legitimate issue because we can talk a lot about taxes, keeping taxes low, and I'm committed to that. I want to keep our tax level at a rate that's comparable to neighboring communities. But we have to worry about fees as well, utilities. What does it actually cost to live in the city of Oshkosh? So I don't have a perfect answer for you, Charlie, about how to keep your water bill low, except preserve water. It's good for the environment too. Don't waste your water. Turn it off when you're brushing your teeth. But I can say we have to be cognizant of all of the little utilities, fees, and really things that are hidden taxes to make sure that the cost of living in Oshkosh is not inflated by those hidden fees.
Yeah, another way that can waste water, even if it's not your fault, like our sump pump issue about a year ago.
Yeah, when our sump pump died. Well, the issue there was more water than we wanted, as opposed to the cost of water. That came in through the basement.
It did waste some water, though.
Yes, you're right, Charlie.
Yes.
All right, next question, bud.
What are 3 things the city can do better?
3 things the city could do better. You mean the city's not perfect? It's a loaded question, my man. Yes, there's always things that we can do better as government. The first thing that comes to mind is we can be more transparent. And when I say this to people, I get some pushback. Like, what do you mean? We're transparent. We have all of our information out there. We're following the letter of the law. And yes, that is true. It's not meant to be a critique on anybody or anything, but we can always do better. And we can go from this concept of transparency when we're making everything available, that's the public's information, to proactive transparency. And that means getting the right information in the right format into the right people's hands, presenting similar information in different ways. So the reason I'm so passionate about a local government performance dashboard, even though it's boring and people tell me it's not the way to get votes, it is a way to make sure that everybody is playing with the same information. And there's no way to even accuse us of hiding money or moving money around, because it's all there for the public to see. So that's one thing we can do better. Even if we get everything I want in place, we can still do better, because we can always do that. It's the public's money,
Sure.
public freedom, transparency matters.
Yes.
The second thing we can do is related to the work with the neighborhoods. So Oshkosh now, I think at the State of the City the other night, I heard 18, but we have a lot of neighborhood associations. And as I mentioned, I'm the president of my neighborhood association, and it's been eye-opening, especially as an association that's a little older. We're really good at making plans. We're really good at starting neighborhood associations.
That is true.
We struggle with the next step, which is implementing. I mean, one of the great promises of neighborhoods is that we can have hyper-local entities making policies, putting things into place, because who knows better about what they need than your neighbors or you, right? The closer you can get, the closer decisions can get to those actually impacted by the decisions, the better they're going to be. So neighborhoods have a huge part to play, but I don't think we've gotten to the point where we understand how to implement things. So I want to take neighborhoods to the next level, that we're not just there to make plans, get grants, but really there to implement things. The third thing I think we can do better is work with our third-party contracts and review our third-party contracts. So I don't know if you know this, Charlie, but municipalities, so cities like Oshkosh, we do a lot of contracting out. So we spend a lot of public money on private entities, consulting firms to provide basic services, things like websites, et cetera. There's nothing wrong with that. That's important, right? The city government's not always going to be the best organization to do something. At the same time, those contracts need to be reviewed periodically to make sure we're getting the best bang for our buck. And that means we have to make sure they're effective, they're efficient, and they're also equitable. So if I'm elected, that's one thing I will do, is go through and review all of those third-party contracts to make sure we're getting what we pay for.
Okay. What is your position on economic development?
I'm for it. Right? Economic development is the lifeblood of a city, especially a mid-sized city like Oshkosh. Increasing our tax base, that's what lowers taxes for everybody else. That's what gives us all kinds of amenities. It's so important. Now, it's easy for me to say economic development is important. How do we actually make economic development happen? I think step one is making Oshkosh a place people want to live. So we have to double down on our quality of life. So that means we need good parks. That means we need to fix those roads that are leading to the ice fishing. It's not all about ice fishing, because sometimes the water is not frozen.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's other types of fishing as well. But we need to really work on those quality of life issues so that Oshkosh is a place people want to be. The second thing we need to do is make sure that Oshkosh is a place that people can afford to be financially. So that means working on our taxes and our fee structures to make sure that we're not falling behind and maybe being an expensive island amongst neighboring communities, because people and businesses have a lot of options about where they want to locate. So we have to say, what makes Oshkosh special? Well, what makes Oshkosh special is the quality of life here. But we also have to be cognizant that we don't want to highlight what doesn't make Oshkosh special. We want to make sure that our tax levy stays comparable to neighboring communities. We have to keep it affordable. Otherwise, we won't attract people here, and that doesn't help anybody. And the third thing that we need to do for economic development is to really double down on what we have. So we want to retain businesses that are here. Things like we did with the Oshkosh Corporation. It was controversial at the time, but that can be the best economic development strategy, is keep what you already have. And we also have a heck of a lot of talent, a heck of a lot of intellectual capacity. So students that graduate from UWO, students that graduate from the tech college, I want to make sure they stay here. When they get their next great business idea, when the next great Fortune 500 company comes to town, or idea for a Fortune 500 company comes to town, I want it to stay here in town. So keeping what we have.
Okay. What do you think of your opponents?
I don't have any opponents, Charlie. I have future colleagues. So we have an at-large system here in Oshkosh, and I don't see them as opponents because there's 6 of us running for 3 positions. The fact is, a bunch of us that are running in this election, we're going to have to serve together. So I have made a point of reaching out to every single opponent of mine and every single council member and the city manager and saying that I'm somebody you can work with. I am a firm believer that that which unites us is stronger than that which divides us. That is a governing philosophy that I have. That's a life philosophy that I have. So what do I think of my opponents? I am proud of anybody that takes the risk of running for office because they love their community.
Okay. What is your position on special assessments?
I'm against them. Who likes special assessments? You play Monopoly?
Yeah.
You play Monopoly with me sometimes, right?
Yes.
You ever get all your hotels, all your houses, and you're doing everything the right way and you're crushing it, and then you land on the chance. And you pick up the chance and it says, you are assessed for street repairs. What happens?
You're basically screwed over there.
Wipes you out.
Yep.
You did everything the right way,
Yes.
but to win this thing, and it wipes you out. That's not fair, right? That's not fair. Special assessments, that's a problem. They're not always fair. We've had horror stories here in Oshkosh where people are getting hit over and over and over again. And those are the types of things that make people want to leave. If we talk about economic
Exactly.
development, that's an example of things that make people want to leave. So what do we do about it? Well, I think it starts with principles. We have to think of equity. We have to make sure that we recognize that public services need to be improved. Roads need to be fixed. Otherwise, we can't drive on them. It hurts our economy, hurts our connectivity, right? We have to pay for things. There's no getting around that, but we need to find an equitable solution. I have been supportive of the dual structure strategy that's out there right now. If people don't know about that, it's where residents have a flat monthly fee, and businesses have a flat monthly fee. I think there are some legal issues that will probably come up with that, so that's probably not going to be the long-term answer. But bottom line is we have to find something that is equitable and based on logic, so everyone's paying their fair share and nobody's getting screwed over.
Okay. Like in your free time, what do you do for fun?
What do I do? Well, Charlie, what's the most beautiful sight in the world?
A bent fishing pole, and the least most beautiful sight is a broken hook.
A broken hook. You don't like broken fishing hooks? Yes, I love fishing. I love fishing with my sons. Hard water, soft water. One of the great things about Oshkosh is that we are here on the water and we have those opportunities. I love running through Menominee Park, and I love playing guitar and singing songs. And
Yes.
they even let me do
He
that
has,
in
like-
church once in a while to an
Yes,
audience.
you have like 12 guitars in the basement.
I don't have enough.
You have more than enough.
Thank you, Charlie.
I have one guitar.
And it's a good one though, right?
Yeah, it is.
That's 2 things you should do every day. You should try to catch a fish. You should try to sing a song. What's cool about Oshkosh is you can do those things most days.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything else you'd like to say?
Well, first off, thank you, Charlie. You're a heck of an interviewer. You were tough but fair. I appreciate that. But I really just want to point out, or I guess I want to stress, that I am running for city council. I'm running for an at-large seat because I want to represent everybody in the city of Oshkosh. I am not endorsed by, nor am I accepting any help from a political party, because I am not going to walk in to the city council on day one and have half the residents of Oshkosh think that I'm not on their side, because I am on everybody's side. That which unites us is stronger than that which divides us. Doesn't mean that I'm going to agree with everybody all the time. No, that's impossible, and that would be unhealthy for a city council to operate that way. But I will always be committed to listening. I will always be thoughtful, and I will always answer questions and be clear and transparent about what it is I believe in. And to that end, I hope you take some time to visit my website, www.oshkoshforall.com. I have all my policy positions laid out there. I also have a Q&A page that goes through and lists all the answers I've given to third-party organizations that come out with their position polls and trying to figure out where you stand on issues. I post all that because you as Oshkosh residents and voters have a right to know. So thank you for your time, and don't forget to vote April 7th.